Only one matters. In 2020, actually before that, 2020 brought a resurrection of BLM and Black Lives Matters. One race trying to declare to the world that they're more important than the rest of us. And if you're going to brag and if you're going to play that game, then you'd better have something to show for it. My point is that when you look at and unpack the raw facts of that ethnic dynamic in the United States, they also contribute to the lion's share of crime, cost, criminal justice problems, murder, mayhem, riots. To say that today, you'll be labeled a racist, but that is the truth. That 13% of the U.S. population is one of the biggest thorns in the side of the United States of America. Not all that are within that ethnicity are part of that problem. The majority of them are. After living in Augusta for 6 years, I have seen and watched and witnessed the tribalism mentality that they tend to stick together. When you get more than a few of them in a workplace, they form a stronghold. I want to talk about strongholds today. I want to talk about that we're living in a time where we're very open for demonic possession, not us as Christians, but demonic possession, demonic involvement. And I'm going to tell you that I have watched play out at my workplace just that. The guy that I work with will disappear for some time, and I noticed another guy from another department come up and was real chummy with them, and one or the other is giving each other drugs. It's pretty obvious. The guy I'm working with will disappear, come back reeking of pot, and I notice a significant change. He just starts becoming Heckle and Jekyll, and I want to say something. I got a call from my supervisor last night because I filled out the weekly survey, and I was very honest. I said I came back close to walking on Thursday. I said I'd had enough. And there's something wrong when we live in America where we have to walk on eggshells and coddle a certain other ethnic because they played the victim, and the media has played them the victim and is blaming and laying all of the feet of the blame at our feet. And Michael Nelson is smarter than that. And I realize I'm living in a town where most of the people here fly at about maybe 50 feet above tree line. I'm flying at about 36,000 feet. When you live in a town and you live in a community where the prevailing collective intellect is not good, when you live in a town where this group of people is very, very drug friendly, very friendly to getting drunk, smoking dope, crack, and the lying and the fudging and the messing around and the good old boys club, their style, this is not going to be a friend of me. I had gotten fired from a place for doing a video, transportation, and they did not, to me, have legal grounds to fire me, but they had enough legalese in their employee whatever about the internet that, and here's the problem. It says avoid the offensive. Does the school district, does the Democrat Party realize that they're doing things that offend Christians and white males and conservatives? What about that? Why is it that we need to cater only to a certain group of people to get butthurt while we trample on others who are being violated, abused, psychologically, emotionally, being made to feel guilt? I remember when white people were apologizing for being white in 2020. I'm like, boy, people got more than just COVID in 2020. They got mental illness going on. I don't know if that's a virus or not, but it seems to have a link to Democrat leftist beliefs. And I'm different. And I've become different over the years because I refuse to sit under a stereotype. I dress a little strange. I dress feminine. And I do it because I enjoy it. And at the end of the day, All the people on the internet, all the people we deal with in life are not going to be the tribunal that I or anybody else has to stand before. Not my boss, not my supervisor, not my coworkers, not church people, nobody. That when I stand before the great white throne judgment, the Bema seat, it's going to be me and God, the Trinity. That's it. Nobody else is going to be in that room. Nobody else is going to be there saying, nobody. Nobody will need to be. God will make it known to me right there, everything that I did that displeased him. And that goes for every human being on earth, even those that are not Christians. Non-Christians say, well, I don't believe in God. Well, it doesn't matter. You're still going to face the judgment. You're still going to have to give an account to what you did. My supervisor called me just before I was going to bed. We had a long talk. And he shared some things with me that just shocked me. Some things that I'm not going to tell here. But there's an employee working there who is black, who had a temper, who did something to another black employee years ago that police were called. He was fired for a year. And one of the owners at that time brought him back. And I thought, wow. And I almost said to my supervisor, do you realize if that guy does anything to me or anybody else, and we know this, we've got an automatic lawsuit. He took a piece of company equipment and destroyed somebody's vehicle. And he's still employed. And then I'm wondering why he's being such an ass to me for no reason. Wow. America has gone too far in putting up with being bullied by a certain 13% ethnicity in this country. We can't say anything without being branded a racist. We can't say a word about their crummy music. We can't say, I really don't like your culture. And you walk around like you're superior to us. And I'm going to say it. I have more culture than most of the African American people I know. I lived in Hong Kong. I listen to classical. I listen to rock. My spectrum is much greater than most of the people I come into contact with. And I've noticed, and we live in a very pot, marijuana-friendly environment. And I prayed again last night, God, please drive this guy out. Now I'm praying for that other guy, drive him out. When you've done what you can, you go through chain of command, you do anything, there is nothing wrong with saying, God, if this is where you want me, I pray that you get this person out of here. And I told my supervisor, there's a Heckle and Jekyll going on. He goes, he does this when I said yes. But he did it in front of one of the owners yesterday, trying to boss and all that. Then I said, this owner needs to get a spine. I said, I notice he deals with problems by not dealing. And he goes, yes, that's why I'm in my position. I said, well, this stuff is what's causing problems. And I said, I didn't want to talk to you about it because I don't want you to think. And he said to me, the problem is, he said, I agree with you. He said, I have to handle this right because you and I are two white people. And he said, it's so easy for them to just accuse of racism. I said, but you know he's doing stuff. If I was a boss, I'd say, why are you hassling that guy? Why are you doing over and over what he's asked you not to do? That's a good employee. And if you don't knock it off, I'm going to send you home without pay. If you do it again, you're done. Why is our society afraid to deal with the elephant in the room that everybody knows is there? They're afraid of lawsuits. They're afraid of all kinds of things. And that's what's wrong with America, is that if you're standing on the truth, you should not be afraid. As a Christian, I have somebody greater than all the clown show that goes on around me in this world. That's God. He says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. That means when you're doing drugs, Christian, and you're getting drunk, and you're involving yourself in sin, you're bringing God right there in the middle of all that. When you're doing a toke, God is in you. When you're getting drunk, God is in you, Christian. And I'm going to say something because I don't think most Christians realize the depth of what I'm about to talk about. But I've noticed Friday, the guy and I got along great. Yesterday, we got along great until the last couple hours of the day. And he went back to that jackhammer. Hey, Mike. What? Now, listen. Okay, we're not going to do this again. We've been doing fine. You know I'm busy. Well, I need you to take these tickets. I said, hold on, I can't do them right now. Let's go over these together. Mike, I need to pull like 30 tickets. Dude, before you came, I was doing this by myself. Now, I need you to take care of that over there. And then he disappeared for a while. And I know what they're doing. This has happened many times with many employees, the ones that do the drugs. They go disappear, take a toke somewhere, and then they decide to wander back into work and then come and start bossing. And I'm going to say something about marijuana. I had a talk with one of my moderators the other day and said that he had done marijuana years ago. He said it caused so much anxiety and stress. Some people told me about jitteriness. And people try to portray marijuana as an herb. I have a family member that is a Christian who is working for a pot shop. And you cannot communicate. People are, well, it helps me. Is that why we don't have our conversations anymore? Is that why your depression's getting worse? I don't think it's helping you. When we rely on a surrogate as a Christian, not only will not work, but we're being deceived. And I'm going to say it again. God will share his glory with no other. He will not share it with a blunt. He will not share it with a beer can. In time, if you rely on anything but God, it will fail you. Using drugs. I don't care what these pro-marijuana, pro-420 clowns have to tell me. I know people right here that come to my chat room. They brag about getting drunk, smoking pot. They got kids. My pastor actually in Sunday school said, somebody who's given into regular drunkenness, you ought to stay away from them. I ended a conversation last night with somebody because the drinking doesn't stop. While talking to me, that person, and then talking over me and going on and on and on and on and on. I'm like, oh, this is exhausting. I just came home from work. I'm trying to eat my dinner. And it's like, okay, Looney Tunes. I cannot help an alcoholic. I cannot help somebody. I told one person, I can't date you. Well, I'm never going to quit my alcohol completely just for somebody. I said, you shouldn't do it just for somebody, but you should do it for you. Well, I know I got a problem. I said, you've had a problem for years. So what are you going to do to stop? What are you going to do to change? I can't change you, and nor should you change for anybody. And men and women, I'm going to tell you something. Don't be so dumb that you fall in love with somebody who's a substance abuser, because they may stop it for a minute, But once you get all legally hooked up to them, they're going to go right back to their default mode. That's basic psychology 101. People need to stop something by themselves with no other motive, but because God and them are working it out. So many guys said, oh, I love her, but she smokes. And she said she's going to quit. Until you marry her. And that cigarette's going to come out again. Women and men that are substance abusers, whether Christian or not, are to be avoided for a relationship unless you're one of the abusers yourself. And a guy like me does not belong with a smoker, a pot smoker, a marijuana friendly, a drinker. Does not. It will not work. It will not work. And I'm going to say it again. The Bible refers to the word sorcery. The Greek word is pharmakia. Where we get our Greek word, pharmakia is the Greek word where we get our word pharmacy. So we all know what a pharmacy is. And I have not done a working definition of sorceries. But we think of a sorceress. We think of a wizard or, People talk about Ouija boards, the occult, horoscopes, Dungeons and Dragons, and those are satanic. There's no doubt about it. Being involved in Freemasonry and lodges and secret societies is not of God. Being involved in the Masonic, the Shriners, all those groups, they got roots into Baphomet, the Goat of Mendes, satanic, deep, dark stuff. But guess what? So many people laugh at the idea of God or laugh at the idea of Satan. But when you are using drugs, I'm not talking about prescription drugs, antibiotics, and stuff that you've been prescribed for things that can only be cleared up by a prescription drug. But if you abuse prescription drugs like Oxycontin, opioids and stuff, and the pro-marijuana pundits out there will say, well, opioids are way worse than marijuana. No, they're both equally bad to me. Oh, you're wrong. Listen to me. Why are you getting high? What's your basis for that? What's your motive behind that? Because you can't deal with life. Why are you getting drunk? Because you can't deal with life. Getting inebriated, intoxicated. I have, with a clear mind, one who's been sober his whole life, have watched alcoholics, pot users. They are very, 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 very hostile. The marijuana crowd out here in Augusta, they are very disrespectful, very hateful. And this idea that they're calm and mellow is a lie. The marijuana today is extremely hardcore stuff. Excuse me. The drug test, you can smoke a blunt and 30 days later it'll still show up in the bloodstream. And you open the door to the devil. Fact. Whether you want to believe it or not. You give yourself over to something that has control over you, giving you an altered state. You have opened the door for demonic interference, involvement, possession, takeover. Why does the Bible say, be not drunk with wine, but be filled with the Spirit? It doesn't say it outright, but it is implied when you're drunk with wine. Look at Noah. He got drunk and he was naked, laying there in a tent. Ham went in and saw it and tattled and who knows what was going through his mind. And his brothers walked backwards with a cape or whatever and draped it over their father. And when their father came out of his drunken stupor, he put a curse on Ham. There are some people that believe that Ham was the father of the African American world, and they wrongfully have taught that blacks are under a curse. Now, we can't prove that. But I am going to say that in the African American community, my observations, and the data will support this, there's a lot of lack of collective intellect. That in testing and all that, the failure rate is pretty high. The criminal element is pretty high. The way that they think, being of a leftist mind, thinking it's okay to riot, smash things up, even though they didn't know the guy personally that's at odds with the police, they use it as an excuse to raise hell. And a lot of people in that use drugs, sell drugs, and you wonder why you're having problems in your workplace. You wonder when you see somebody heckling you. The devil is unrelenting. There is no eye of the storm with Satan. He's a full fury hurricane after you as a Christian every day. And if somebody's under a controlled substance and they're not walking in the Holy Spirit, he will ride on them to ride on you. And it became clear yesterday. This guy is not a child of God. This guy is deliberately doing this because he's opened the door. At work, smoking a blunt, comes in smelling like pot. I even looked at him one day. He reeked of marijuana. I just went, "What you smelling, Mike?" I said, "I'm smelling something." "What you smelling, Mike?" I said, "I'm smelling something." I ain't gonna answer you. I didn't say that. I'm thinking, I ain't gonna answer you. You know what I'm smelling, clown. You expect me to respect people that come to work and are using substances at work on the clock? No, I will not respect that. I don't have to. And we're being bullied by the pro-pot crowd. They want to take over and dominate. It's an herb, man. Well, whatever. Take your herb and get it away from me because I see the destructive effects of that herb. I see laziness, not to mention the odors, behavior. The kids on my bus that were using this stuff were not nice. Any of them. They were belligerent. They would act up. I mean, it is ridiculous. And you cannot argue with an alcoholic, a drug user. They will not, like, okay, women, white women that I know that are substance abusers. Well, I know I have a problem, but it's not as bad as it's been. Man, in the 15 minutes I'm talking to you, blah, 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 you go out and have a cigarette, you go have a blunt, take some mushrooms, some tinctures, some this, some that. And then you got prescription meds for this. Ooh, I had to get off the phone with somebody last night. I just thought, I can't deal with this. A lot of women in our culture, even Christians, are very comfortable with getting drunk, using marijuana. That's not of God. Let me say that again. People want to comment on me wearing my shirt and this and that. But you're doing something that's altering this. You are relinquishing your will to be under the influence of somebody else. And Satan is all too eager to ride on you. You're letting him do it. You want to feel good, you want to get high, you want to get drunk. Why do you think women who get drunk, they lose their inhibitions? I've had drunk women come on to me when I used to go down to the Soul Bar. Very provocative, very flirty, rubbing their boobs up against me, the whole thing. And oftentimes women will not even remember when they did something. And no, I didn't do it with any of them. Did not. And I don't care what anybody says. I'm going to be the individual I'm supposed to be. And it may not look like you or anybody else. And I've been judged by a group of people, an ethnic group, that when your compass doesn't point north, you're going to come up with a system of beliefs, and your group of people, I've noticed something about the human mind. It has a way of calibrating. Let me use this word, calibrating. Even if it's wrong, the thinking will shift so that they can find a way to live where instead of looking at themselves, doing a diagnostic test of themselves, they come up with a viewpoint like, well, he's white. He wouldn't understand. White people this, white people that. So you come up with a viewpoint that demonizes white people. And I've been around these folks for 6 years, and you cannot get through their flawed thinking. People who use drugs, people who use alcohol are very judgmental of other people because they are projecting to avoid putting the spotlight on how ridiculous they are. I've known many alcoholic women. I worked for a guy in Colorado when I came back in 2012. His wife was an alcoholic. And she was very judgmental of everybody. I had a supervisor of transportation who's an alcoholic. She would judge me. She'd talk about everybody. And I'm not talking about the way I talk about issues and things. I'm talking about she looked down her nose. People that are in the wrong will find a way to view the world where they are right and everybody else is wrong. People in cults do this. Drug users do this. Take the whole BLM mentality. You got black people that believe that because they're black, that gives them rights that we don't have, privilege. I think it's very interesting what is happening in our culture. Nicki Minaj was asked to come up on stage with Trump. And now you got all these people supporting Nicki because she supports Trump. But as you know, Nicki has a lot of music that's very vulgar and profane, and she's impacted young ladies in a very damaging way. And nothing's said about that. And now, because she supports Trump, because she was criticizing the trans movement, which great, I agree with her. But have you issued any condemnation for the kind of music you're producing and the batitude and the vulgarity that goes with it? And there is a disconnect. And people say, you don't got no right to judge. Only God can judge. That's not what the word says, honey bunches of oats. Test the spirits to see whether they be of God or not. Judge you among yourselves, Paul told people. Why are you taking each other to court? Can't you solve this problem? Appoint men that are able to deal with this and judge it out. But don't take it before the unbelievers. Christians are supposed to be different. They tell me that all the time about my dressing. Well, I am different. I'm not acting to be like everybody else. I choose to do my own thing. This here is not the same as drugs. And it bothers me that you cannot get through Christians that are drinking, getting drunk, smoking pot. I can't have a relationship with that. I mean, I can be a friend in the distance. Marijuana and getting drunk and drug use does not solve problems. It is temporary medication or a anesthetizing the pain. It's refusing to deal with what's causing the pain. And I'll say it again. When you smoke pot and you do drugs, you are opening the door for the devil to have influence through you, and you in turn will be impacting other people because you're not walking in the Spirit. And I saw this clear yesterday. I said, what is going on with this guy? We were good on Friday. I smelled a whiff of dope yesterday, and I thought, there's a connection. This behavior. Somebody was talking about, oh my gosh, who was the guy they were talking about? The rapper. I said, that guy's terrible. Mike, do you know how much good he does? How much money he gives? I said, do you know why? People that are doing wrong will often do something good to try to counterbalance that. That's psychology 101. You know, when you're full of sin and guilt, you'll go out and do all these good things. It's a weird dynamic. Now, most people that are using drugs, they just aren't capable of being good anytime. I live in a neighborhood where there's certain cats on a certain street that make a whole lot of noise, and I know they're doing drugs and drug running. They're stupid. I would think if you're a drug dealer, you're going to drive a quiet vehicle that's nondescript. No, they make all the noise they can to let all the hood rats know they're coming to distribute the drugs. I remember I was riding a school bus in a neighborhood, Princeton and Wharton Street area, which is just scuzzy. And they did a raid down there one day and cleaned it up. But the driver and I were on the bus with kids, and a guy stopped. Cars were parked in the way. She goes, man, look at all these people in the way, Mike. I said, look at that. I said, look at the guy walking and handing baggies to all the cars. I said, he's not even, no shame in broad daylight distributing the drugs. She goes, well, Augusta will deal with it just before the Masters. I said, before the Masters? She goes, oh, yeah, they'll come down and crack down on this stuff. They do it every year. One day we couldn't get in the neighborhood. There was tons of sheriff cars at the entrance to it. I said, oh, the thunder's coming down. There was a house that was decrepit and toilet bowl in the yard, garbage everywhere. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. Guys with dreadlocks, no shirt on, sitting out there leering at everybody driving, sitting women with the attitude. And you can just tell by looking, this is one rough group. They cleaned that house out, shut it down. There were old black men and women in that neighborhood with nice, clean, manicured yards, and you could tell. They had no trespassing signs on their gate. They had ADT security signs on their windows. You know, as a white male, there are black people that would love to have me as a neighbor because they know I'm not a problem. But drug use, that impacts everybody. It brings violence to the area. It brings danger to the area. And I'm getting tired of Americans defending marijuana, claiming they need it for medicinal. And now they've allowed it in many states as recreational usage. Marijuana has no place in the Christian's life. Zero. And I know I'll be in trouble for that. But this is nothing new. John Wesley, who preached in the 1700s, who was basically started the Methodist Church, he preached against alcoholism. He preached revivals and had outreaches, and bar owners got saved and shut their bar down and followed Jesus. There was a time in this country where people were impacted and they stopped the madness. There was a book, In His Steps, by Charles Sheldon. I never even heard of it. And that started a trend among teens with the WWJD bracelet. In His Steps is a story where a preacher, that's an old book, by the way, that predates me, came to his congregation and said, if we ever asked, what would Jesus do? And I know people throw that at me. None of us is perfect all the time. But one of the members in his congregation was renting, he had property, he was renting to a bar owner. And he said, when your lease is up, I'm not going to renew. One woman in there was singing to the society at large and said, I'm only going to use my voice for God. And it sparked a movement that changed the town. The teenagers were doing it as a fad, and it really wasn't changing anything. In fact, to be honest with you, there's not a whole lot of change going on in our country as a result of Christian churches. We're really stagnant. The churches are closing their doors. The only churches that are booming are the false ones. The motivational speaker, the Joel Osteen's, the Steve Furtick of Elevation, and the Hillsong crap in Australia, which we know what happened down there. And small churches are losing their impact because you got a bunch of ailing, dying oldsters, and you can't breathe and pump life into a tire that's got a big gaping hole in it. And these pastors are trying to keep these flailing congregations alive, and there's no health to it. And what is happening as a society is we're turning away from community. We're turning away from God. I see it in my own life that I've been impacted by Hollywood. I've been impacted by the culture around me. We are, to a degree, the frog in the kettle. There's no denying that. And we get comfortable with sin. You know, when I was a kid, there was no LGBT. When I was a kid, mainstream America said drugs not good. Mainstream. It was not acceptable. Mainstream society did not respect women getting drunk. Mainstream society, when I was a kid, did not go for women acting unbecoming or unladylike. Mainstream society, when you got a cash register job as a young lady, you had to know math. You had to know how to count the money back to the customer. Now you can go into a store and you get some attitude, the bottom lip stuck all the way out, doesn't greet you, is rude to you for no reason, and throws the money in your hand and drops the change on the counter. Isn't that awesome? We've really evolved, huh? And then you got the clowns out there that think they're so smart. Some clown gave me paragraphs proving global warming. I didn't read any of them because I've heard it before, and I just put, tell me what happened to the last ice age. No trains, planes, automobiles, no deodorant cans, none of that. You know, the one that carved out Yosemite like a skill saw and did a perfect skill saw cut of El Capitan and Half Dome, the Great Lakes. Where'd all that ice go? And they talk about, did you know that the ice is melting in Greenland? You still won't answer the question of the past. And by the grace of God, God has allowed me to have wisdom to go beyond their foolishness and say, what about this? The scientists won't even talk about it. Most Christians aren't smart enough to say, you know what? Where did that ice age go? That ended way before white boys showed up in America. What happened to that? So technically, global warming was going on way before we were doing rolling coal and Dodge dually diesels. The ignorance of man today is probably higher than it's ever been. Professing to be wise, we became as fools. And you see that. Oh, I went to college. Oh, you were brainwashed into leftist, socialistic, pro-communist, activist politics. Congratulations, dum-dum. You paid a lot of money for that, didn't you? College ain't what it used to be. And we got a generation of people that get angry at me for speaking out against marijuana. Hateful and angry. Well, there's your proof. If it's so good and so liberating, why are you hating on me? Because I don't agree. Pharmakia. They did not repent of their sorceries, it says in Revelation. We're talking about during the tribulation, some things are going to be going way off. You know, you think a shooting in a school's bad? Imagine being in California, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Vancouver, Canada. Imagine you wake up and the ocean's been turned to blood. The smell. Yeah, your nice Pacific Ocean view home on the hill, the coast of California, and you smell blood and the sea life dies and the stench. And the Bible says every time God sent a judgment, they repented not of their idolatry, sexual immorality, sorceries. What's up with sorceries? I don't see wizards running around with wands and pharmakia. Drug use. Puts you in an altered state. It opens the door for satanic and demonic involvement. I don't care what these pro-marijuana people have to say. I'm standing my ground because I've never done it. You're addicted. You can't stop it. So that gets into the other category of idolatry. Nothing is more unattractive than going into a bar and watching women get drunk. Sitting up there in their provocative clothing with their legs crossed while the man's shelling out money. And she's got her nice little, kahuna outfit on, getting drunk, and he's getting nothing out of the deal. That's part of lubrication. You got to lubricate her to get a little bit sloppy so that you can have sex with her. And I've watched, as an observer who doesn't drink, I watch people. It's amazing how men are drunk under the influence of lust. They'll spend their hard-earned money to support a girl's alcoholism. That most women today, especially in the black community too, they're going to go get drunk after work. In the black community, and many today, they don't even wait till beer 30. They're going to go smoke a toke on the clock behind the building somewhere. That's called an addiction. You can't put this away and do an 8-hour shift? And I realized we can talk about psychology, we can talk about Christianity, but a guy like me, surrounded by people like that, that's not good for me. That's not good for me. That I have to grow myself. I'm not going to get it from the cats that I'm around at work. And even some of the churches. You may be spiritually, emotionally miles ahead of everybody in that group. And their coping skills for that is to put you down. Even Christians do it. Oh, well, he kind of different. Kind of? You're being put down. I'm going, praise God, I'm not like you. I don't want to be like you. I praise God that I can breathe the fresh air of being a free spirit. And I hope that as I age and get older, that I'll be more under the domination of the Holy Spirit. And I'm not always. Even though I don't drink and do drugs, there's times I'm in the flesh. I have to guard against the flesh when a motorist cuts me off. I don't chase them down and hold the horn. But I tell you what, you have to use self-control, whether it's there or not. You have to use self-control at your job. You can't just walk up to the boss and say, I'm tired of your crappy management. My supervisor said, I'm sorry I read your thing and I take responsibility for some of this. I said, well, I'm never going to talk disrespectful to you. He goes, I know that, but he said, I'm not perfect. I said, none of us are. I said, but something needs to be done. You guys need to be the tugboats. When the owner saw what he's doing, he should have said, why are you doing that? I've got Mike working on this. This is none of your concern. And you don't need to boss him. And you don't need to be bothering him like that. Why is our society letting the tail wag the dog? I'm going to be pointed, with regard to the black populace in our midst. Why do we have to give them a wide berth? Why do we have to be careful about what we say? Why is it that they've got way more privilege than me? Even the bad guys. I had a woman talk to me on the phone from transportation. There's a guy that works there. He's flaming bisexual, but mostly gay. But he's dated several women there. He's angered every single one of them. And all the black women eat out of his hand and think he's so funny and cute. He's not. He has given the supervisor, who's black, a dressing down complete with profanity. Where I've walked in the room, I was starting to bristle and say, why are you talking to a woman like that? But I believe stay in my lane. Management has not disciplined him, has not fired him. If he doesn't want to come to work, he's a no-show. And the director of transportation fired a black woman. A kid had cussed her out that she had tried to get control of the bus, and she uttered an expletive back. He called mommy. The bus driver cussed. Mommy called transportation. You notice that about the African-American community? They'll dish out all this bad behavior. But if an adult turns around and says, no, why don't you shut the F up? You don't need to be talking to me that way. Oh, the bus driver cussed. Why is the kid cussing? Because mama talks like that. So mama going to call transportation and try to have the bus driver's job. And the director, who's nothing but a stool pigeon, fires her. I wouldn't have done that. I would have called her in. I would have reviewed the video. I said, I see what's going on. I'd say, honey, we're not supposed to cuss. Let me talk to mom. I want you to work. You have a situation like that, walk away from the kids, sit down in your seat, and just don't move the bus until you sit down. If everybody starts yelling, say, I can't move with kids standing in the aisle. I'm sorry, that's the law. Call us on the radio, let us know what's going on. They can do live camera now. In fact, drivers are very concerned about that. The office can pull up a bus lifetime and watch what's going on right now. Why aren't the classrooms required to have that technology? The principal. Why is it that the office should be able to zero in on a classroom and say, hey, we got a situation down in room 101? I wouldn't have fired her. I would have called up mom and said, yeah, okay, I reviewed the video. I've talked to the driver. But are you aware of what your kid was doing? Did your son tell you what he was doing on that bus? Because I'm going to inform you what the video shows. Well, your driver's supposed to be the professional. I agree. But they're human beings too. And that level of disrespect, your kid was dishing out the driver. I'm sorry, I'm not going to discipline her for that. I'm just not going to do it. This driver's had no complaints. In fact, I'm going to suspend your kid off the bus myself for a week. That's not okay. And that is the problem at large within the African American community when it comes down to these national news scenarios. George Floyd, Rodney King, O.J. Simpson. And they do it to me as a bus driver. I stopped the bus because I smelled the marijuana rolling down the aisle on a high school route. I always keep the dome lights on. I don't drive dark bus, not at night, morning. Got up, walked down the aisle, smelled, tried to see if I could get a general area. Didn't say anything. Man, why you got to stop the bus and walk down the aisle? He said, because I'm smelling marijuana, that's why. And I've told you guys, don't smoke this on the bus. And I told you if you're going to smoke it at the bus stop before I pull up, could you use the blunt spray and not walk in here with all that? There are people with allergies. There are other people on this bus right now that have told me that that smell bothers them. I use this bus for training after I'm done with my routes. I have school administrators coming on here and they say, why does this bus smell like pot? I said, that's Glen Hills High School. Oh, figures. And I had a black girl say, why don't you just shut up and drive the effing bus? How are we as whites supposed to respond to a culture that's been taught to hate us, disrespect us, and talk to us like that? I said, excuse me? I was standing right by the seat. I said, you can move down up front. And even another black girl said, man, respect, girl. Respect. I said, did you just hear that lady? That lady's going to be a successful woman. You might want to listen to her. I need you to move to the front. Oh, no, I'm good. I said, no, you're not. I need you to move to the front. I was able to get her off for 3 days. I'd have a discussion with the bus, not pointing at her or anybody else, and she'd laugh like a hyena. She would deliberately disrupt. My impression of many blacks is they make things worse. They don't follow the rules. They're going to be exact. You tell them don't do this, they're going to be contrary. That's why you have so many police black shootings, because put your hands in the air. They refuse to comply. Officer sees them turn their head and go like they're grabbing a weapon. The officer has to make a split-second, nanosecond decision. And then when he does, we're tired of this. They're killing our people. Well, your people are getting pulled over. And now they say, oh, it's racism. You cannot win with clowns. You cannot win with a culture that's been brainwashed by the Democrat Party. And many of them do drugs. I'm gonna share something with you. I know I dress different. And I had, which one was it? I was in my yard doing yard work. It was a nice day. And I had on my skimpy little top. I'm like, I'm in my yard. I'm not out there in the public. I'm raking, and it was pleasant weather, but I didn't want to be totally shirtless. And two different times, I had something interesting happen, and it didn't even register to me what was going on until after the fact. I didn't even have a skimpy top on when the one episode happened, but I was doing yard work in this. And I'd backed my truck in, I'd got out, went to go check the mailbox, and this car sailed right across the front entrance to my driveway. Went to go to, hey man, how you doing? I said, I'm good. How can I help you? Well, I noticed your truck's gone. I said, yeah, I'm having it worked on, the big M35A2. And, oh, I thought you moved. I said, no, I'm still here. I don't even know who this guy is. He's missing teeth. He was a fright. I mean, he was frightful to look at. And then he says real quietly, he says, man, I saw you come out one day in that top. I said, yeah, I just dress different. I just try to have fun. Oh, well, you and I could have fun. I said, no, I'm not into that. Really? I said, no. I said, I'm not into that kind of fun. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I said, you have a good day and you be safe. I'll be danged. The guy was flat out hitting on me. Then another time, a guy pulled up. He says, hey, I need to talk to you. I said, what do you need? And I said, don't pull in the driveway, please. His vehicle is running real rough. And I'm like, no, don't pull in my driveway and break down in my driveway. And he pulled partway in. And he started telling me the story that his daughter, something about his daughter. I said, did this just happen today? No, it happened years ago. Why is he telling me this? He goes, man, do you need any money? I said, no, I work a job. No, but I'm just wondering, do you need any money? I said, no, I'm good. I said, sir, what do you need? I got to get my yard work done before, it gets dark. And red beard. I mean, he looked like a druggie. The guy was hitting on me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's looking at me for sex? Ugh. I mean, that just blew me away. Guys, and, can we use this as a segue to say something? I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I've been judged very, very harsh by a lot of black people, and I didn't do anything to them. I noticed in Augusta, not just here, but quite a few towns around America, a lot of the local women aren't pretty. Around here, you got a lot of big girls with a lot of big problems. I'm just saying it. Some guys are into them big women. Hey, it takes all kinds to make a world, whatever floats your boat. I don't like women with hairy underarms, and there's a lot of that out here. They walk through the flea market in shirts like this, and they go like this, and there's monkeys swinging out of the vines under their arms. I mean, it's gross. And I look at a lot of the guys, even in my own neighborhood. They're not handsome. They don't have good hygiene. You got grown men walking around, dirty pants, dirty shirt, looking like they crawled around in a crawl space all day. And it dawned on me, man, what in the world? Where have I moved? And before people think, oh my gosh, you're so judgmental. No, that's not it. I don't think I'm all that. But what I'm seeing in society is a breakdown. And I am good looking, and people will get on here and call me ugly. They don't have a face pic. Or if they do, I'm like, Have you ever looked in the mirror, Cat? We have a drag element to society that is getting larger and larger and larger in a first world country. Homelessness, drug addiction is extremely out of control. People letting their teeth go. People, and I've noticed a strange thing about people. It don't matter if the guy is missing all his teeth, looks like hell warmed over. Everybody thinks that what they're doing is right. Everybody, and without exception. You got churches teaching false teaching. They're not loving people. They're preachers. They're after money. You can't tell them the truth. They think they're doing right. And it messes with your mind when you realize, not only do I live in this weird, broken culture, and I'm in South Augusta, so it's mostly black. And strangely enough, I don't like to go to the west side. That's where all the white people are, all the businesses are. There's too much traffic. There's wrecks all the time. So I stay in my own hood. I go to work, I go home, and I do my purchasing of whatever in my neighborhood. And even black people told me a lot of businesses moved out of South Augusta because of all the theft. Black people at work, when I was in transportation, told me that. But then they'll vote Democrat, and they're against a white Donald Trump. But then they'll vote in a white Biden because he's liberal. And Biden actually made racist statements. He said, I don't want my daughter to go to a black school. It's a jungle in there. Not one black person called him into account for that. But when I said on my video, the next time I move, I don't want to live in a majority black. I didn't say I want to move in a town where there's no blacks. I did not say that. But just like bad people, the bigger the group of them, the more hostile it becomes for everybody else. I see this in my workplace. We are so many of them, they form a stronghold. They're doing the drugs. They're acting up. The other day, I walked into the break room yesterday, and one of the guys, I've never had any back and forth with him. I walked in, and he just sat there and stared, and I went, and he didn't do it back. Now, what's he sizing me up for? Well, because the guy I'm training is now and then he comes over into our department and, hey man, and they're bumping up tight against each other. I know what the hell's going on. Slipped him a blunt. Like, you know what? I'm not comfortable with this stuff. And nor should I be. And our Democrat news media likes to get up there and say systemic racism. Oh, I swear, I was so sick of 2020. The two favorite words of the left, pandemic and systemic. Yes, we have a pandemic of too many Democrats, and we have systemic liberalism. There you go. That is systemic. And they were saying systemic racism. We don't have systemic racism, whites toward blacks. That is not true. We do have a lot of systemic blacks racist against the rest of us. Listen to what the local blacks here say about Asians. Racist. They've told it to my face. I said, well, I happen to get along with Asians very well. Yeah, well, when we go into their stores, they're watching us. I wonder why. I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that white businesses left because you looted them all. Do you think it has anything to do with the collectiveness of your community? That's not racism to make an obvious deduction. I don't care what a black woman or a man thinks of me because I have made my assessment. A lot of the community here in the African American sector is deficit. And they're flying about 50 feet above treetop, and I'm at 36,000 feet. And that's why things don't work. When you're intellectual, When you see their age, they don't have a car. They're living with somebody. And the girls move in with them. And then they have 10 kids that they're got going in all directions. And then they'll sit there and say, I have privilege. No, I didn't knock up the chicks. I realized nobody's going to help me survive. I have to survive. I discipline myself. You could do the same as me, man. You chose not to. You waste your money on a blunt. You waste your money on $13 pack of cigarettes. And you do dumb stuff. That has nothing to do with white. That has to do with you not having moral fiber, character, discipline, financial integrity. That's on you. And you know what's awesome? I don't stand before the black community on that day. They got to stand before God just like I do. And can I be honest? We're all going to have a rap sheet. Every single one of us. Every single person alive or that's passed has a rap sheet. So if you're not in Christ, you're in trouble. Because I don't care who you are. I don't care about the Sally self-righteous spinsters for Jesus. Oh, I'm waiting for a godly man and they don't exist. And neither do you, because you're not perfect. We are all going to stand to give an account for deeds done in the body, whether good or bad. I'll give an account for the way I dress. I'll give an account for the words that have flown out of my pie hole. I'll give an account for all the dirty, immoral, ungodly stuff in my heart that I didn't confess. Here's the thing. You want short accounts with God? You want to minimize what happens on that day? You better be confessing daily. But here's what bothers people. When you're a good worker like I am, when you're 59 and you're in good shape and you look good, that is a threat to a drag culture. When you got people that just slide into work late, oh, I don't want to go in today, it's cold. And what kills me is E-Rock went to work yesterday, and this is what he said in a text. None of the black people showed up today. Wow. He said, and when they're there, they're playing with their phones. They're wasting time. And he's been very bold and said, you know, can you guys get to work? Oh, you the white guy thinking you can tell us what to do. That race makes it a racial thing, not us. We just observe pattern recognition. I think it's funny when I read to a friend of mine the other day from transportation that stupid letter from the superintendent. Mike Nelson did not use judgment with what he said. We have a policy that says avoid what's offensive. Did you guys follow that at transportation when death threats were made on me by a guy that was there for 25 years skirt chasing? And even other black people in management said he don't do a damn thing all day. If I had the power, I'd fire his ASS. Did you do anything about that? Did you do anything about the rude comments made at me by a woman driving a sped bus for a whole year? Driving reckless, damaging the bus, hitting things, not reporting it, backing into mailbox. I'd be in the back of the bus. Stop, bam. You just hit the mailbox. Did I knock it over? I said, no, but you bent the post. She drives off. I said, you know you're supposed to call that in. But watch somebody back in her mailbox and wreck it. I'm going to sue. I'll tell you what. I make observations, people, and if the black country in this country is offended by what I say, then quit doing what you're doing. Simple. I'm not going to live with white guilt. I'm Irish. I'm proud to be Irish. I'm glad I wasn't born in black skin because you guys are caught in this. You're enslaved with this wrong thinking. And if a black guy tries to be free like me and is a conservative and a Christian and doesn't believe in that, you guys alienate him and hate him. I'm glad I wasn't born in your community because you guys deliberately clip each other's wings. I'm glad I wasn't born in that skin. The pressure to conform in that community is extremely high. I don't envy their culture. I don't look in on it and say, wow, I wish I could be like that. Everything in me wants to get away from it. Everything in me wants to find a group of people that I can really connect with. But let's go further. Let's be fair. Down here in the white South, I'm not meeting a lot of great intellectuals in the white community either. This is the South. You know, growing up, it's funny how we use the word, directions. Up north, out west, back east, down south. And hunters will say, well, yeah, I shot him in the south end of the deer. Or when something goes bad, yeah, that went south. Why do you think people say that? How did all that start? Look it up. The South has always been the butt of jokes because it's been the butt of America. The sphincter, racism, the Civil War, the crap that happened down here. And I had a preacher at my workplace make a dig against Northerners. I want to stand up and say we're harder working than Southerners, by the way. We're more intellectual than Southerners. We can endure much harsher weather than you can. Yeah, it gets hot, and I've endured it, and I hate it. But you get down to 20 degrees, and you guys are dressed to the nines. Face coverings, everything. I don't put on face coverings until you hit 30 below zero. I love all the tough talk by the African American men. But when it's cold, they're not going to show up. One thing I love about bad wintry weather, it's quiet in that community. They're not driving around going, you can't even get them to get out of the house. I've lived a lot of places, and I hate to say it, wicked winter weather is a great deterrent to that community. That's why I would gladly live in Greenland or way up north. I don't like the cold, but I'd live up there knowing, wow, I don't have to deal with this anymore. And yet I played one of my regulars who we chat. She sent me a song, an African woman singing a praise song. Her voice was beautiful. It did not sound anything like what the African community produces in America. Beautiful. The words, it moved me. And I messaged my other friend. I said, you know what? I should move to Africa because there's some truly beautiful people over there. And they got class and they know 3 languages. They could probably have. I had a school teacher. Unfortunately, I shut my Facebook down. I should have got her on Discord. Mabel is a school teacher in Zambia, and she's very intellectual. She wanted to marry me. She wanted to visa me to come over there. I said, you can't visa. She goes, Michael, I have a farm. I own my own house, and I pay workers to work my farm. Yes, I can visa you. I liked her as a person, but I didn't feel the romantic pull that way. I talk about the Henba tribe. Those women walk around topless. I find it startling to me. There's a tribalism over here that doesn't exist in the Henba tribe. Group dynamics. I see it every morning. Yo, what up, man? What up? They're all nice to each other. They got that thing going on. Body language. And in me, well, that changes. It's nice to go to work with some drug addicts and people, and I notice, They're not going to like me. No, I don't have to do anything. They're not going to like me because you know what? Even though we got our problems, if you walk in the light, the darkness is going to seethe at you. And that's exactly what's going on. And the guy I work with, he's giving himself over to drugs, and then he starts getting worse. And I mentioned that to my supervisor. I said, you need to be aware. He goes, I told him, you better lay off of that stuff. Because if you have a drug test, I said, well, give him a drug test then because I'm tired of this. Get him out of here. We got a black woman starting today who's my age. He said she interviewed well. I think you'll like her. I said, good. If I can teach somebody to do the job and we can run together on this, that'll be an awesome day. So back to what I said about my dressing. I noticed something. A lot of the people aren't beautiful down here. And there's people that will sit there and say, everybody's beautiful. No, they're not. No, they're not. There's many people that don't think I'm beautiful. This is a detraction. But I don't think I'm GQ. I'll never grace the cover of the Hot Men magazines. But I think I've done well for 59 years. And there's so many gross women down here that I started to realize, my gosh, I'm starting to realize why some men are looking at me. I'm clean. I'm smooth. I'm not dirty and gross and missing teeth. There is an attraction to one that's good looking and clean and smells good. And I've freely talked about this. I could never be gay. I have had back massages done by males that were gay. They felt good. They were enjoying running their hands all over my body, and they gave me a great massage. I wish I had somebody do that now. It's sad because a lot of the hate I get on YouTube even, I don't have a family to fall back on. I don't have a community to fall back on. Michael has been brought to a point where I have nowhere to go but God. Now stay with me. Most of you have never gotten to that point. You got brothers or sisters or wives and girlfriends, boy, you got that support group. This is the one town I've lived in where I do not have that at all. I mean, I talk about people that are friends with me, some black women. One that offers me a plate every holiday, Thanksgiving. She checks on me and she's kind. Her and her husband are very cool to me. But I'm not going to find my true love here. Excuse me, I'm not going to find that. All I get is this on the internet. No one at work in this place is ever going to be my friend. Ever. This is a place to make money. That's it. So when I say I'm lonely, I'm not shriveling up because of it. It's made me stronger. Most women, they got all kinds of friends. If they're halfway pretty, everybody's all into them. Women claim that they're strong. Most women, and especially the social media queens, they could not live the existence I'm living. To be alienated, to not be part of the thing here, women have a privilege that I will never have. The blacks have a privilege that I've never had. All this talk about white privilege, to suffer, to be hated, to be maligned, to be jeered at, laughed at, that in Augusta, the best I could do is two draggy guys, black and a white guy, stopping and hitting on me. One offered to pay me money. I'd need to use a pressure washer with soap after that. Bill Gates got STDs by Russian prostitutes. Can you imagine if I was a male slut with some of these males out here? Wow. You have to be careful what you do today. And you may think I'm being rude. I'm not. I was kind to them. I said, well, I got to get back to what I'm doing. You be safe and be careful. I didn't yell at them. I'm like, I've said it before. I don't care if a man's attracted to me. I think it's awesome because we live in a broken society. And like I said, since I moved here, I have had a massage by nobody. I haven't even gone to a man to massage me because the South is creepy. Now, I'm going to say it. There's things in my church that are definitely Southern. I'm like, you know what? There really is a stigma down here. There really is. And I find things to complain about in every place I live because we're in a broken world. I lived in Hibbing, Minnesota. That's scary up there. People up there are so stoic. If they don't like you, they'll kill you and nobody will know who did it. So you got that dynamic. I've lived in an all-white town up north. You know, them people were creepy up there. But there were some even up there. I remember a guy named Pat. He'd park the buses, pull the buses out of the garage every morning. He'd see me and give me a lift. He was a nice guy. And he told me, he says, Mike, I'm glad you're moving. He said, you're a good guy. He said, this place is crazy up here. He said, you're smart. You're handsome. He says, you don't belong up here. I said, thanks, Pat. He goes, no. He said, you're a good worker. You're a good guy. He says, get the hell out of this place. Pat was cool. I don't have a close male friend here. Not at all. And I'm a Christian and I struggle with the flesh. I mean, I want to relieve myself. I want to feel the moment with somebody. And it's wrong. You know, God, no sex before marriage, can't do all that. And it is getting harder out there. I don't know anybody who is a Christian who is telling me that they have a great, easy life. The ones that do, they're obviously not suffering. And I will go on the record saying if they're not suffering, two things come to mind. Either you're not saved or you are not walking in the Spirit ever. You're walking in comfortable cultural Christianity, which is manufactured right here in America. That is made in the USA. Comfortable cultural Christians. I'm not trying to be self-righteous. I like people. But you got women that roll into my chat room. Oh, I'm so drunk and I've been getting high. You're naming the name of Jesus and you're sitting in there bragging to everybody in the chat room about that. What is wrong with you? You think that's an endearing quality? I told you. I've seen some women that I thought were attractive. You get up close to them, you smell the coffee, the cigarettes, and the alcohol in their breath. What a combo. I just like to tongue kiss that. That's horrible. Now, we got a real enemy out there, folks. His name is Satan. And people using drugs are just opening the door. And Satan will use them to get at us. I'm watching this play out every day. And I said, wow, my supervisor called me. I said, look, I'm not trying. No, I called you. I said, I'm not the problem, man. I'm not the problem here. And you get these butt stains on the internet. Oh, it sounds like you have problems everywhere you go. Most of those people aren't Christians. Most of these trolls are not born again, saved people. So, of course, they're just going to throw crap on the wall and hope it sticks. The bulk of the trolls probably don't have a job and are living in mama's basement. So, whatever they have to say is disregardable material. Directionless fools. And a woman told me the other day, Mike, you know why you get so much hate? You are confident and you are bold, and they would not do that, so they blast. And I don't think that way. I'm like, guys, people being jealous of me? I don't think so. And it's because I've never believed the good. I'm like, I'm not anything. And that's part of the enemy's lie. We're not supposed to think of ourselves more highly than we ought, but we don't need to think of ourselves more lowly than we ought either. When we are in Christ, we have a certain amount of victory afforded to us just in the fact we have a relationship with Him. So there's nothing wrong with an honest assessment. I'm not God's gift to women or society, but I'm good looking. So if a man says, wow, you're good looking, I don't care. If you're creepy and weird, I'm going to be like, okay, enough. You know, I have been open to some things, but me being dating and marrying a man, no. The things that homosexuals do with other men, no. What I want is intimacy. And you can't get that today. Intimacy is not just sex. I need to have more of an intimate relationship with God. That's not sexual, but a closeness. You know, for years of my life, I tended to call my friend about everything that was going on. How many times did I go to God with that? You go to church, it's cold. You go to work and you got all these dynamics. Yeah, society can weigh down on you. It can be overwhelming. But I'm standing by the grace of God. It hits me sometimes when I go to bed. Man, if something bad happens to me, I'm screwed. Michael, stop listening to the devil. I will never leave you or forsake you, Christian. That's what he says. Do we truly believe it? Do we truly walk in that? If we're honest, we don't. You got two kinds of people in this country. Most are arrogant. And then you got the others that actually believe they're worthless and believe the lies that they've been told and the abusers told them and the devils told them. There is very rarely in America a well-balanced man or woman. People define well-adjusted people based on their income and corporate and nope, sorry. No deal with that. Some of the worst people I know are corporate buffoons, acting, looking down their nose at everybody because they got a high-paying job. Wow, so that means you got scented poop. Okay, I haven't seen that yet, but, get back to me when that happens. These bananas, every one out of this bunch, refuses to open the correct way. A banana with a bent. We all have a bent, don't we? Drug usage is in a different category. I tell people I know, you sit there and say it's not as bad as it was. You keep lying to yourself. You keep playing the circular files, the circular record with the scratches in it that skips. I don't know how to stop. I don't know how to stop. I don't know how to stop. Well, I'm not as bad as I used to be. I'm not as bad as I... Continue to be in chains. I have chains. I still have to wrestle with the demons of thoughts and words and voices from the past. All the crappy things that were said to me growing up. I do take to heart too much what trolls say. So I look at their channel if they have one. Oh, all violent video games and dumb stuff. No picture. People that troll are projecting. And I have to tell myself, the thing is, I know up here what's going on. I have intellectual, but we have to discipline ourselves and say, Michael, you know most of these trolls are projecting. They just get on and they leave rude comments. Truly mature people, well-adjusted people go, the Mike's channel's not for me, and they move on. They don't feel the need to leave stupid comments. We think because it's 2026 and we're in a modern world that demonism doesn't happen. We read in the Bible where Jesus went to the Gerasenes, and there's some fool running around in the tombs, breaking chains, naked, manifest. And he comes up, lashing out at Jesus. And Jesus says, be quiet. Only God can tell the devil and his minions to be quiet. What is your name? Legion, for we are many. Oh, this guy's got at least 1,000 demons riding in him. Do you know what that looks like, people? You think it can't be your boss or your supervisor or coworker? You better believe it. But this guy was heckling me, and I told my supervisor said, he says, I get it. He's hustling you. I said, yes. And that's when it hit me last night. He's doing drugs, and he's under the controlled substance, and then he comes back, and Satan's operating through him, because I noticed this has been very oppressive. It's wearing me down. I have to shut my mouth so I don't get into office. And that's it. When the natural doesn't make sense, then you have to look at it from spiritual eyes. The devil tries to tell you you're worthless, or with unbelievers, he tries to puff them up like he himself puffed himself up. I shall be like the Most High. The devil's a liar every day of the year. He doesn't take a vacation from lying. Why do you think the major networks are fake news? He owns them all. NBC, CBS, ABC, let them put that on. CNN are controlled not by college-educated people, which they want you to believe, not by true journalists, but by Satan operating through godless fools, directionless clowns who were taught, go to college, get a degree, you can be a journalist, reading a teleprompter. And you're getting big money to read what they want you to tell the people. Open head, insert mush, shut lid. Congratulations, you are the weakest link. And America has been just totally deceived by TV and the media. I grew up when news was respectable. Walter Cronkite. I mean, I used to love the news. I used to like Peter Jennings. By the mid to late 90s, I begin to see the shift in the media. The media has been exposed, called out, and they're still doing the same dirty, nasty stuff. The devil doesn't change. A lot of Christians and conservatives are believing lies. They're believing that we are going to turn this country. I don't see it happening. These states are electing bad governors. They're predators, the Democrats. They're on the cliffs looking down on us. They're waiting for us to get comfortable and lay down and put our legs in there like a bleeding sheep, and they can sink their fangs into us and finish us off once and for all. Look at how hard Trump's trying to work to erase the 4 years of damage that the Biden administration has done. Costs haven't come down. It's amazing how an administration under the power of Satan can do so much wrecking ball damage in 4 years. I talk openly on my channel about struggles, and I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not an advertisement for something. I am a human being. And I feel I've been set free, to be honest. And that takes a lot of step of faith, a lot of risk. If I want to try something, I do it. And I get a lot of hate and criticism for wearing this. I believe something, and maybe it is a lie. I'm sexy in my own right, and I want to enjoy it before I turn into a wrinkled prune. Why does this man have to follow society dictates? I'm not woke. I'm not trans. I don't want to be. I'm honest about my sinfulness. I'm honest about my struggle. Pretending and praying and reading the Bible and doing certain things, thinking that you're just going to become perfect, is not even right. You should read the Bible. You should pray. We need to do that. But stop believing the father of lies. We're not going to be perfect in this flesh. We've been made righteous through faith in Christ. It's a position. And it seems contradictory because he's made me righteous. Christ is the propitiation for my sins. I've been sanctified, set apart. I see all the ugliness in me. It's there. Can I be honest? My mind is a moral cesspool. I love lust. My drug is an orgasm. And I like to have an orgasm. The way it makes my body feel, man, I don't drink. I was like, isn't that amazing that the dopamine and what do you call the different things that release in your body when there's pleasure? I'm like, people do drugs and they have hangovers and headaches and anxiety and side effects. That orgasm goes, when the good ones happen, and go all the way into the soul. I got plantar fasciitis. And I can feel the soles of my feet tingling. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like a temporary shot of morphine through the body. God gave that to us naturally. It doesn't cause headaches. It doesn't cause you to puke in the toilet bowl. And I look at people using stuff to achieve something that is just going to have more bitter consequences than good. And you go to church and the pastor is saying masturbation is a sin. Well, then don't do it. But I'm going to do it. It's better than running around having sex, which Christians seem to be very comfortable about moving in, shacking up. And I'm not going to berate people who do it because they're going to do it. I don't know, man. I wrestle too. How do I get closer to God? It's hard. We have to go to work. I wish I could plant a seed and have a money tree. I wish I could have a Dollar Tree in my yard. Not the store, but a Dollar Tree. Mike, why didn't you come to work today? I was picking fruit in my garden. Oh, I didn't know you had a fruit garden. Yeah, I got fruit trees. It's good green fruit. Wouldn't that be nice? Have a tree that just grows $100 bills. Clusters and clusters and clusters. Get your little basket out. Shoot, it'd be fun. Put a little bonnet on. Put on my little shirt. Sing a little country, this little sing-song song. Oh, the fruit's looking really good today. Wouldn't that be fun? You'd be in such danger. You better hope the neighbors don't see that. Isn't that funny? Play that out in your mind. Imagine yourself, imagine me living in this neighborhood, and if this whole neighborhood suddenly was made aware that I won $10 million. Do you think that if the neighborhood knew that I'd be in danger? You better believe it. Do you know how many women anywhere in America would be hitting on me if I had that net worth? They weren't interested in me before, but if I have a bank account like that, you could bet they're going to be schmoozing up. And my mind lives with the reality of the heart of what people are really like. And it's scary. It's sobering. And I live with the reality I'm probably never going to find me a wife again. How do I live as a Christian and abstain from the lust of the flesh? I mean, a girl come over and want to pull up her shirt. I'm not going to say no. I'm not as interested in having sex today, to be honest with you. So much work anymore. And I admit, just like women say they don't need a man, I need a woman, but I don't need a woman to relieve my sexual drive. I hate to say this, but even for me, fantasy is often better than reality. I can entertain a thought, even if it's wrong, and the orgasm's more intense than when I actually had sex. I'm like, well, shoot. I'm in control of it, not somebody in their moodiness. I can rub one out, feel that tingling all the way down to the soles of my feet, and I can go on about my day. It's amazing how worked up we get when we get lust going. We see a pretty woman, and that consumes us. And I can masturbate to a thought, and I can look more objectively afterwards at the woman. That before release, you're not objective. After the release, Now you can start to say, let's look at her as she really is. Forget the boobs, forget the shirt. Listen to what she's saying. Watch the body language. Watch her talk about herself and her interests. That alone will shatter everything. My cousin used to tell me, you like a woman? Talk to her. You will find if you just talk to her, don't go out, you begin to see that, boy, I'm glad I didn't go out with her. Same with you women about guys. Talk to us. There's a lot of false beliefs out there. Sometimes the church tells us wrong. They go on and on and on and on about virginity and waiting for the perfect one, and you don't want to have sex until you're married, which is true. That is what the Bible teaches. But then you have a lot of people, to avoid sinning because of our date culture, which is really not good, because dating turns into mating. And one of the primary reasons Christians get married is they don't want to sin. Now they get married, they go to the big bedroom, and they suddenly find he has erectile dysfunction. She hates sex. Wow, now you got problems. I struggle with God's ways myself. I have been somewhat impulsive. Even now, still am. It's weird. People say, why would you live in Augusta? Augusta's been a detox for me, that's why. When I lived other places, if a girl wanted to do something, we did it. If I wanted to get back massaged by a guy in Denver, I could get on Craigslist, go to a guy that's making good money, got a beautiful restored antique house with a little glowing fireplace, and put me on a massage table and make me feel like $1 million. Here, I'm lucky if I can get through the day without being shredded by the devil. It's so stupid. Somebody said in the chat, well, you can pay for them. I'm not paying $100 for some woman to go, I'm done. So depersonalized. And I hate to say it. I am broken. You know, guys are weird. I'm not into guys. But there's some men that rubbed me down and they made me feel good, and it was nice. I wish I had that. Not some creepy weirdo. I don't care if he's gay. I don't care if he's straight. If he's attracted to me and he wants to rub me down and give me, that helps my muscles. If he's getting his inner jollies, so what? I'm not perfect. I'm going to say it again. If you come to this channel looking for the perfect Christian, you're wrong. I'd rather be true and open before you and my God instead of living this double life, which is what 99% of Americans do. However, you got that element here in Augusta. They don't hide it at all. They flaunt it. They're open. I'm like, wow. No sense of class. And it shocked me to realize I finally experienced what some women go through. When I dress like this, guys are hitting my... Can I say something? I don't care if a guy is looking at me going, Wow, that kind of turns me on. I don't care about that. But I was guilty like the women. The women wear this. We all look. And the women find guys like those two. Wow, you're really hot. And they're going, ooh. And women that have felt that men won't take no for an answer, I feel that now. But I wasn't going to be mean to the two guys that came over and were one saying, you need any money? You want any money? Of course I want money. But if that means I got to get degrading with you, no, I'll wait for payday on my job. I don't want that rubbing up against me. And it suddenly hit me. Because of my social experiment, I feel for some of these women. Even the ones that dress modestly that have told me, Mike, this guy keeps staring and trying to hit on me and I'm not interested. I said, why is it that men can't? I mean, these guys were bold enough to pull up in the driveway. And even if I wanted to have a homosexual tryst, not them. No, I need a sterilization chamber afterwards. It's sad that I go to a church. You can't be as honest at that church as I am on YouTube. It's sad that I can get on here and I feel comfortable being who I am, but in society, I'm not allowed. I don't go to work dressed this way. My job, I wouldn't dress this way. You'd be dirty, sweaty, and no. But I have no regrets about being transparent and honest. Lying about it, pretending that I'm not, have this struggle, that doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't make us more Christ-like. Playing a game is playing a game. And there's winners and losers at a game. Paul says, run the race. It's not a game, it's a race. And sometimes I trip and stumble. Paul says, don't be entangled. Sometimes I get entangled. Sometimes I spend hours looking at stuff. Sometimes I give more attention to that thing between my legs than anything else on a whole day because I'm tired, I'm depressed. The basic classic system, blast, bored, lonely, angry, stressed, tired. It's cold out. I can't rake. I can't do this. I could pull up the carpets and mop the floors, and I don't feel like doing it. And the truth is sometimes we need me time, even we men. I don't personally think it's wrong for me to be in touch with my feminine and masculine side and enjoy it. I'm not out there hooking up. Sometimes I wear the shirts I do because they arouse me. It makes me feel provocative. I can't have the real thing. I don't stand there and stare at myself in the mirror, if that's what you think. I don't have mirrors on my ceiling and sit there and do what people do with that. But men, I think men today are at a disadvantage because society puts expectations on us that they don't put on everybody else. And there are things that men need to go to work. Men need to get a job and go to work. Men need to say no to drugs and alcohol. But one thing, Christians don't need to play a game. Pretending you don't sin, pretending you don't have that struggle. That is not what Jesus called us to do. I would caution you, man or woman, be careful who you confess your struggles with. Not everybody needs to be told that. That's funny. People say you're a YouTube artist. I don't call myself a content creator, a YouTube artist. I said I have a YouTube channel. That's it. Had to hit the alarm off. I don't create content. I'm a person of substance. I bring substance, transparency, and honesty. I could write a porno novel. I had a girlfriend tell me, you would be great at writing a porn novel. I started to with the My Crew, with the ladies. I thought, well, I can't put that on the internet and talk because all the Christians will go, wow, Mike, you really are messed up. There is a porno side of me. There is an arrow side of me. There's an arrow side of everybody. And they pretend that doesn't exist. It is one of the loves. I hate to tell you. And it's the part that gets the bad name. If I want to dance like this, what is wrong with me being shaven, clean, and smooth? Well, you're supposed to look different. I do look different than a woman, dum-dum. I'm still a grown man. The problem is there's too many people in our culture that want to put you in their little box. When you dare to be different, you're going to get all kinds of flack. And that's what keeps a lot of people from being real. The fear of being laughed at, ostracized, shunned, scored, ignored, mocked, fired. Michael, if you knew you were going to lose your job, would you have said that video? I don't know the answer to that because I never thought I'd get fired for it. Do I apologize for my view? No. Do I care that the superintendent said coworkers were offended? They offended me for 6 years and they didn't care. No, I don't care if they're offended. Truth hurts. You got your foot stomped on because a white boy told the truth. That's your problem, not mine. You got what you wanted. You got rid of me. And guess what? Your seats aren't getting repaired. Your pumps aren't clean. And you got 2 people down there now and they're not getting it done. So have fun with that. That's why your society decays, because you drive the good people away. I'm a white guy and I came into your midst to serve and be a servant of the people. Now you don't have that anymore. Now you don't have that anymore. Because your own culture isn't a servant to you. So all this does is validate more and more that, you know what? Sometimes there's a cost for being honest. And what does our society say? Well, don't be offensive. When in Rome what? Do as the Romans do. Well, if the Romans are doing wrong, should the Christian do wrong? People love to quote at me Deuteronomy 22:5. Why are they so worried about that? That's the only verse they quote at me. The only one. Do they read the whole Bible pointing at their own selves? They don't. Projecting. I like to be sensual. I like to be feminine because I'm 100% masculine too. I'm comfortable in my skin. I'm not these, I'm going to say it, people on the internet that are dyeing their hair green and trans and whatever and full of hatred. This is not your normal channel. I looked down on myself for years and I've noticed, to me, I feel like I'm a fine wine. It gets better with age. I look at me, I'm sorry, I can rock it better than most women today. And I think it's funny because so many women have this attitude when they're not all that. And I could put on a wig and I could put on some jewelry and I could walk in a top like this and I'd have every head in the room turning around. And you got all these nitwit narcissists, babies, immature girls on there with 37,000 men slobbering. That's not a good man, ladies. And men, that's not a good lady. Men, you're both not made for, you're both sad. And men just bow to anything that's got boobs. You emasculate your own selves. You stoop to lowest lows just because she's cute. I loved going to the steam bath. Yes, it was absolutely Corinthian and decadent. But there's that flesh part of me. I enjoyed being naked in there. I enjoyed laying in the, you go past the locker room into the glass door into the shower area and with the big marble benches or the tile benches and then the hot tubs there, and I would sprawl out. And the air temperature was just nice, and you could hear the sound of the steam and the showers running and the water, the moist air. Colorado's so dry, and I was proud. I loved being naked. I would be comfortable to be in a nudist colony. I think it'd be awesome to be able to be naked. And I know that there's sin associated with taboo with all that. But I liked being naked. I liked that I could sit in a steam room full of men shoulder to shoulder because everybody's clean and you could be talking and having intelligent discussions. Some were gay, some were bi, some were straight. And I'm like, why is it I can get more out of this, which has got the perception of being utterly taboo, than I can in a church? Most men in the church setting, I don't even want to be with them. They want to be over me. They want to boss and control. Do you notice that, people? There's so many people in America, they want to control everything. They want to make you a disciple of themselves. I don't consider myself a renegade, but maybe I'm a little rogue. Maybe I am a renegade. And maybe that's why I don't have a lot of friends, because I see myself, I don't see myself as a wolf or I'm predatory. I see myself as a wolf where I like to roam in those woods on a moonlit night with the snow. But I like to come to the edge of the clearing, like if you're in the Angeles Crest National Forest and you're looking down on LA. I like to be the wolf that looks down on the city, but I don't want to be down in there in that concrete jungle. But my eyes piercing the night, and I picture myself being a black, beautiful fur wolf looking out going, what a beautiful view. Standing there with a wolf female. It's lovely, honey, but it's not for us. No, it isn't. Let's go. And we turn and run back into the forest. I have analogies and pictures in my mind. I would love to be a story writer, but some of it would be racy and Christians would be protesting every step of the way. Somehow or another, when you become a Christian, you're not allowed to be expressive and intimate and sensual or any of that, because now we got to be rice cakes, cardboard, wear LL Bean jackets and go to church and lift our hands to silly, crappy, passionless music and dress barn clothing. And you're just like, there goes the alarm again. I can't do it, man. I don't want to be like that. I want to be me. And I struggle with that because I carry guilt. Why wouldn't I? Christ is perfect. I am not. And people like to be like people. They want identity. They buy sports jerseys. to identify with their team. They'll buy shirts to identify with their car or truck. I choose to identify as myself. There's a concept. There's a concept. But drugs, I'm going to say it again, you open the door for the devil. That's the fast track to Satan. Bible says, walk in the Spirit, you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. That's a hard one for me. Okay? But when you do drugs, you are never in the Spirit. If Christ lives within you, yes, he'll never leave you nor forsake you. But you're not walking in the Spirit no matter what you think. You cannot walk in the Spirit under the influence of controlled substances. You cannot do it. I have a hard enough time and I'm sober 24/7. Why compound it? And I realized yesterday, it became crystal clear. I notice I'm getting weary in my spirit with this guy. The word vex comes to mind. He's vexing my spirit. Now, I'm just saying, okay, Lord, I don't know how much longer this has got to go on, but I'm going to pray that you move your hand against this guy and get him another job. Get him out of here. And I'm hoping that will be facilitated soon. I can't talk about some things that were discussed with me by him, but this stuff, this world is not our friend. Saying that one group of ethnic lives matters over and against everybody else, that's racism. Only one matters. Christ, the Lord. I'm so sick of saying all lives matter. No, only one matters. God. Everybody, black or white, Hispanic or Asian, male or female, rich or poor, slave or free, all that matters is God. You're not going to be judged by the BLM movement. You're going to be judged by the Democrat Party, the Republican Party, the House or the Senate. You're going to stand before the Almighty God. Do you believe that? Do you believe that all that matters is Him? That's it. We move and have our existence because of Him. You have your job and your house or whatever you have it because of Him. So I don't follow the BLM. They've been caught with their pants down. The woman, that ratchet female that was all anti-white, took the donations and bought herself some nice properties in California. That's crooked. She's to date not been arrested for any of that. And where's the black community protesting that? The blacks should be protesting saying, hey, you took our money and you're living like a queen. If I was a black person, I'd be pissed. All this protest and it's a joke. It's a joke. All that's politically motivated. Minneapolis got caught with their pants down with a Somali daycare fraud, and they needed a diversion, so they created one. George Floyd was the diversion of Paul Fauci. You know, it's ridiculous. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you for liking and subbing. If you feel inclined, hashtag Pacific Ocean Asia 77 if you want to donate. But my channel does not depend on donations. It depends on the fact that God breathes life into me. If I get up and I got YouTube, still have a channel and still have a voice, I'm going to be on here. Lord willing. Be safe, have a good day, and thanks for listening. Till next time.